radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Today is January 5th, 2023. Our guest tonight is Cristina Gomez, the paranormal host. And I just want to say this about Cristina really quick without going through a really long bio, but she's a content creator. She's very busy. She's got 3, 4, 5, 6 shows that she's doing a week. She's now got a music channel as well. Her shows include, Shifting the Paradigm, Strange News, or More Strange News, Weekly Strange News, and Mysteries with the History, and so much more. Very busy, college student, getting it done, and through all of that, of course, hanging out with us and the rest of the Fadernauts in the UFO community, the paranormal community, the supernatural community, and for her, it's the Pug Wedgie community. Cristina, welcome back to Fade to Black. How you doing?
Thank you, Jimmy. Like I had told you backstage, or like how you had told me backstage, long time no see. It feels like forever. And for people that don't know, we co-host a show together every single Thursday on my channel. And so I just saw him like 2 hours ago.
You know, it's so funny. Thank you for all of that, Cristina. And every Thursday I get up and I look forward to our day. But that is Thursdays are a very busy day. You know, we do your show. I'm doing the live news, and then I roll into Fade to Black, and it's just back-to-back content on Thursdays. It's a very busy day, but I just look forward to it. It's such a cool challenge. And like today, we did your show and ran up to 4 o'clock. You and I talked backstage after that. And I had already had the news scheduled for 4:15. You and I stopped talking at 4:20. I literally stopped that and hit go live and rolled into that. It was like, whoo, man. And I just love Thursdays. It's another day for you. All you do is content creation, and you're constantly doing stuff. But really quick, I want to say happy holidays to everybody. We are now rolling into firmly planted both feet in 2023. And although you and I did our first show of 2023 together earlier today is our first show on Fade to Black together with you. So, yeah, and been dealing with the weather. I don't know where you are at, but because you run in clandestine mode, but I'm sure the weather out there is starting to trip out like it is out here.
Getting a lot of snow, and I love snow with all of my heart, because with snow, I get to watch the TV show Father Ted and have hot chocolate and popcorn. Like, that is my ritual when I see snow.
What do you let me ask, so Father Ted, which you turned me on to, it's
so
really
good.
It's really, what else do you watch? Do you watch other TV programming?
I honestly hardly have any time to watch television or movies. It's like a little grace period for me if I'm even given the opportunity to watch any type of television. But for those that like Irish humor, Father Ted is going to be your favorite TV show of all time.
That's a very small community.
Well, we can grow that community, Jimmy.
Yeah,
with getting more people involved, because it's great.
Yeah, Father Ted. You know what I'm watching right now? I'm in the middle of, and I'm really digging it. I know this is going to sound strange. Disney's National Treasure. They've got a TV series out now.
No way.
Yeah, and you remember the Nicolas Cage, and
Of
especially
course.
the first one was really good. But the first one was really good. So yes, now this says Nicolas Cage is not in this. This is a bunch of Disney kids, right? But it's actually really, really, really good. And there in this, I don't. You find out in the first episode. I think I'm on episode 7 or what. Yeah, it's weekly. Um, the Mayan codexes, and that's what they're putting together. And there's 4 of them, and they're searching for those. And the weirdest thing about this, a couple of episodes ago, I couldn't believe this. They went to Graceland, Elvis Presley's house, because apparently there was a clue left by Elvis before he died at Graceland. So they had to go to Graceland. I thought, wow. So I got Mayans and Elvis Presley. What is not to love about National Treasure? So yeah, everybody should go check it out. It's good fun.
It sounds what was that kids book that was full of like really bizarre mysteries? It was a brother and a sister and they had like a treehouse.
That was every kid's book.
Well, it sounds like that. And it's just like a wax story. You get all these weird combinations of mysteries. You put it in a book and then everyone loves it. But I haven't watched that on Disney. It sounds interesting. I don't know if I'll ever have the time.
Yeah, it's really good. It's campy. There's no potty mouth languages. There's nothing. There's no drug use. In other words, it's the opposite of America, right? So you don't have. It's like the storybook version painting of the youth today. But anyway, it's
wait. John says Magic Treehouse. I think that is the book
Magic
series.
Treehouse. Yes, of course.
Thank you, John.
That. Yeah. Who did that? Who did that? Yeah, Magic Treehouse. God, man, that's going back. I don't know how much. I don't remember much either. Going back when I first had you on as a guest here on Fade to Black. But one of the things I want to visit your attitude from back then, because I remember asking you your opinions on a few different UFO cases and UFOs in general. And you were adamant. You're like, man, my opinion doesn't matter. I'm not giving you my opinion on nothing. How has that changed? Today, it seems to me from the outside looking in, I can't stop your opinions now. What has changed?
That is not true.
What has changed? There you go. What has changed between now and then?
So there's no real change in the aspect of if someone asks for my opinion, I'm kind of like, I don't like giving my opinion, because even today, I've only been doing research for about 2 years in the topics of the unexplained, which originally started with UFOs and it sprouted out into everything else that I didn't expect 2 years ago. But when it comes to opinions, they're consistently changing with every new book, every new documentary, every new article I come across. So while I am better at piecing stories together that I have done through research, especially with the shows that we have done on Mysteries with a History, which we focus on one specific topic per show for what's been like a year and a little bit now, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to add into a conversation, but when it comes to opinions, I still am not too fond of sharing those. It's like with the facts, the data.
Okay, but that's on your show. You are now a guest on my show. And this is where I ask your opinion. See, you don't get to use that. You can't use that as a pass card to get out of a question now. Because your opinion does matter. And here we're trying to figure out things about you. So, with that, what's your opinion on
on puck wedgies are the absolute best cryptid on the planet?
Right. Now, see, that's not an opinion. Now we're getting into facts. Those are facts. Those are facts.
There you go.
Do you believe that we are being visited right now as you and I talk, right now, by an extraterrestrial civilization from out there in the stars?
It's absolutely possible. I am open-minded to that possibility, especially with so many contactee and experiencer comments and stories that have been relayed over the centuries, really. And now more than ever with the internet that we have, people are more easily able to express their stories and their encounters. And it seems like a lot of them, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them truly believe that they're being contacted by extraterrestrials that, which in that title defines that they're not from this planet. And is that possible? Absolutely. I don't see why not. But I think that the universe is teeming with life. So
Well, okay. But open to the possibility. We're all open to the possibility. I'm asking you, do you believe? It's like a yes or no question. Are we being visited today by extraterrestrials or not?
because I don't have that information in front of me, I don't have the data, I simply cannot give an answer on that. But there is life that could be so much older than us, that could be visiting us, that could have the most advanced technology to where they don't have to travel at light speed, but can use portals and wormholes to travel from point A to point B.
But that answer you can apply to every question that I'm going to ask tonight. See,
It's gonna be a fun night.
yeah, it is. It is. And so, how do you think that there was some other assistance in building the Great Pyramid, or do you think that the Egyptians just did it on their own, willy nilly?
So when it comes to the Great Pyramids of Egypt and a few other pyramids across the globe, in the time period that it was created in, it makes you take a step back and question, did just humans create this?
Hmm.
And when I looked into, and now the temple's escaping me, but it was one in Mexico, the one that's dedicated to the serpent god.
Hmm.
I can't,
Chichen Itza.
is it that one? Well, I'm
Yeah.
not sure. Well, anyways, at the entrance of getting into to look at the pyramid, it literally said in Spanish, this temple was not made by aliens. Like right when you enter and purchase your tickets. And while you have a lot of archaeologists that think that humanity made these things with time and effort, there are those, very specifically in our community in the UFO field, that think that with the time that it took, the manpower that it required, it seems almost difficult to believe. But human ingenuity and the ability to invent, right? It do amazing things. So I don't ignore that fact
Mhm.
where ancient mysteries are concerned. Is it aliens? I'm not sure, but I'm open minded to that possibility as well.
Now, okay, and this is where I find this subject really, really fascinating, um, because I don't think it was aliens either. I mean, possible, everything's possible, but somebody with knowledge on how to do these things. It's the engineering, it's the quarrying, it's the carving, it's the cutting, it's the movement, it's the transportation, it's all of that, and then you have all of the math and the architecture side of it, where you're building these things, pointing in a specific direction, and how do you level the ground? All of that, right? It seems that somebody was instructing, right? Somebody was teaching, somebody was showing. Where did they come from? And is it possible, and without going into Atlantis or something, but was there another civilization roaming the earth that survived, that was advanced? And then they come across a culture like the Egyptians or Mesopotamia, and you go into ancient Sumer and you see where they're at, and they're going, you know what, here, this is how you build a good road. This is how you do some math. This is some engineering techniques. That's what I think went on.
Well, when we look at some of the sculptures that have been depicted in Mesopotamia and looking at what are now classified as the Anunnaki, there are so many specialists in the field that look at these carvings, stating that these tall giants that have those perfect rectangular beards are carrying a pine cone and a handbag. Is that as if they're passing their ancient alien knowledge over to humanity?
Hmm.
Is that a possibility? I think it is. But with what you stated, I wonder the exact same thing. A civilization that existed during the Ice Age on the equator, tropical zones which are now underwater, why not? It would make sense for a lot of the strange mysteries from the past to be buried with those ruins. And as we know, only what 15 to 20% of our oceans have been mapped, scanned, and discovered. That still leaves 80% totally in the unknown. So not
Right.
only is the ocean a total monster soup, we have no idea what monsters live in there, but
Mhm.
also there's a lot of potential lost human history that are beneath our oceans.
So when you enter the plaza at the Vatican, right, and you're now on the Vatican property, that giant plaza, in the center is a statue. Guess what the statue is of?
I think you said it's a pine cone.
A pine cone. A friggin' pine cone, Christina. Right? It's like, explain. That's all. I just need some help. Why that? It's not Jesus. Huh? It's not that. It's a pine cone. Yeah, that's pretty weird. It's very strange. So if we go with this pine cone and the purses, right? Those purses have been seen on, I believe, every continent, maybe except for Antarctica, but that's next. Those purses have been on every continent. What do you think is in them?
From the research that I've done, I know that we talked about this in the Mysteries of India, where we talked about handbags as well, and Shiva carrying one of those handbags, one of the gods of the Trimurti, for those that may not be familiar with it. You're right, it is consistent across cultures, and the question is why? What does it represent? Is it just carrying some cosmetics and a snack? Or
Mhm.
or is it more symbolic of it's passing down knowledge, like some people assume that have looked into these ancient sculptures for decades? We're still in that mode of speculation, and anyone claims that they have the answers. Sorry to break it to you, but they don't. They're merely speculating. There isn't any book that states for a fact what those bags entail. But I think that because it's being portrayed across cultures, hopefully it would have a universal meaning. And I would like to think that it is passing down knowledge more so than just a nice accessory to add to your deities.
Yeah, for sure. But they are accessorized pretty nice. I mean, the hair, the beards, the clothing, nice shoes too as well. But
Of
that bag
course.
stands out. And when we look at, and certainly through your research, when we look at the timing of these carvings, this art, this wall art, that's one thing. And the Anunnaki and that story and Sitchin's version of the Anunnaki were going back 200 to 400,000 years, right? So that's a long time. And we need to leave that part for another conversation. But if we talk about those handbags at 3000 BC, 2000 BC, that's a long time ago. It's 5,000 years, 4,000 years, right? And then we go to Göbekli Tepe and they
And they're
show up
there, they're
again. Yeah. And that's with a, 5 to 7,000 year gap. And that's not a coincidence, isn't it? Is it? So what could possibly, because they are depicted exactly the same.
Which is another really weird detail. While we are aware that across cultures their style differs, especially during time periods as well, but when we
Mhm.
look at the handbags, it's a very simplistic rectangle and then a little handle, which is a semicircle, and that's all you're getting. There isn't, from what I've seen, there isn't any details etched into the handbag. It's very simplistic. And the question is, why? Why are all of these cultures in different points in time creating the exact same thing when people believe that there wasn't any communication between countries on different parts of the world, opposite ends? Now, could there have been communication on opposite ends of the world in a time period where we didn't think that was possible? Maybe. And then we can go from there and do all this speculation and even jump into conspiracy theories. But when looking at the handbags, it could have even been regarded to trade, or how they were able to get these depictions could have been from a passing of knowledge from one culture to another through trade, or old civilizations doing trade as well. So I think it's really interesting that all of these handbags are super simple. They're not these delicate, exquisite handbags that you would assume with the other carvings that have been presented right next to those handbags. But I think that there needs to be, at least on my behalf, more research done on those things.
The the stuff that's around the world, and today we did a lot of aboriginal discussion too as well. We're talking about 30, 40, 50,000 years old, that culture there in Australia. But when we look around the world, we can see the ancient stuff, and it exists everywhere. And you think about what's going on, not only in the Middle East and Egypt and Iraq and Syria and Jordan and Israel, but we've got China, we've got Russia, we've got Japan, where old established things are there, and you can go and see them. But we are finding out now that North America, Central and South America, was certainly there, but North America, there was never nothing to see here. Right? There was just not, and it's turning out to be one of the most interesting places to go and see things right here in the good old USFA.
You're absolutely right. I mean, look at Yosemite Park. That's amazing. We can look at the Grand Canyon. We can look at the Great Lakes. We can even just go to Washington as a whole, because that's just entirely Bigfoot country. You can go to Maine and get that incredible snow, but also some interesting types of cryptids and UFO sightings and paranormal encounters as well. You can go to the central of America, and it's just flat land, but incredible for farming. So you're absolutely right. When it comes to the states, you have anything and everything. And there's a lot of myths and legends regarding the land.
Yeah, well, you've got Serpent Mound, which is crazy. And it's not the only serpent mound. There's many, but the Serpent Mound in Ohio is absolutely incredible. But when you go to an ancient site, certainly, Egypt comes to mind for everybody. And you look at the hieroglyph carvings and the amazement of that. And then you go to, say, Laughlin, Nevada, and right there, right outside of town, are 2,500-year-old petroglyphs, and they still don't even really know how old they are, carved into this canyon. There's hundreds of them. And you go and you look at that, and it's right here. It's right here in the United States. Some ancient indigenous culture carved that, and we're trying to tell us a story.
Yeah, you're right. And it goes to show that, as you had mentioned, when it comes to looking at the United States, it's a little bit more ancient than people expect. There's so many mysteries that are taking place right here. And while it might not be classified as an old country, it does still have that intense history like every other country does. I
Well,
think,
Chaco Canyon, right? The Anasazi.
oh my gosh, yes.
Right. And If you want, we could talk about the Anunnaki and Sumerian tablets and ancient history and altering of DNA. We could talk about all that. It's a great story. And then you've got Chaco Canyon right here, where the Anasazi said they came from the stars and they needed to go back, and they disappeared. And Chaco Canyon is just as elegant as any megalithic site on the planet.
It is such a cool location. The glyphs are incredible. John Dover has done extensive research there. He's a retired Navajo Ranger. I am aware there was a episode, and I haven't seen it in so long, but there was an episode, I believe it was on, I don't remember which TV show it was on, but there was a researcher that went into Chaco Canyon and was able to measure a time dilation right there. It was off by like 0.2 seconds, 0.3 seconds or something like that between just inside of where this town was, and then just outside of it. And I found that really interesting because time should not be able to fluctuate like that right next to each other, just actually in general. But I don't know if you know what TV show I'm talking about, but it stuck with me, but the faces are blurry.
Now, when another curious thing that I have, you've been at this now for a couple of years. Do you have a favorite UFO case?
I do. And I've said this so many times on the show that we do together, and that is the Colares, Brazil incident in 1977.
Mm-hmm.
That one is my absolute favorite case. And
why?
The reason to that was it's probably the only story that I've come across so far where you have a mass sighting for 6 months every single night at the exact same time between 7 and 8 p.m. Multiple people get injured. 2 people die because of these encounters, because of these craft that are visiting this very small fishing town in Brazil. And Jimmy, we've covered so many cases. I've spoken to so many people, and the Colares incident, there's just something so unique about it. And for those that don't know, I'll give you a brief summary on it. And what happened was, for the first month or so back in 1977, this small fishing town, Colares, they were being terrorized by these craft that were coming every single night, to the point where they would never go out by themselves. They would go with groups of people, and then they would sleep in the same home, a bunch of people sleeping in the same house. And it was getting so intense that the mayor had to contact the capital, Brasilia, to say, hey, bring your military officials. We're having an issue and we need protection, but also we need some answers. So the military come in from the capital, and the town folk, they expected for these men to be carrying guns, having grenades, cannons, I mean, all these types of weapons. But they came with paper, pencils, and some cameras. And so they were there to document all of this, which ended up being called Operation Saucer, Operación Plato. And with that, there's thousands of witness testimonies that have been released through FOIA back in the early 2000s. Thanks to AJ, he just passed, and it was because of him we were able to have these witness accounts, along with drawings that were created by the military officials. And then in 1997, the captain of the operation and his Captain Lima and his Orange Lima, I remember his name, he spoke to AJ and his other companion for UFO Magazine, the only magazine at the time in Brazil. And he stated that not only were we researching and investigating this encounter for several months in the same location every single day, but myself personally, says Lima, I had my own encounter. Not only did I see these craft in the sky like everybody else, but I had a close encounter where I was in my room one night and a small being about 4 feet tall, wearing a silver suit, hugged me from behind and said in a robotic Portuguese, um, accent, stating, "We mean you no harm. Just don't worry about it. Just relax." And then it disappeared. I have not come across a story like that where you have the man operating the whole project publicly come out and state that he had an encounter, along with getting so many witness testimonies, which you can find at the Black Vault, drawings as well. But if you attempt to speak to the people in the town, from my knowledge, they won't speak about it. They will not tell you the story. And my question is, why? It was so intense. It was so impactful that maybe they find it too traumatizing to talk about because, as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, two died because these beams of light would come down and they would place about 3 puncture wounds per victim, to the point where the locals called this beam of light and the craft chupa chupa, which means sucker sucker. And they believed, because it was a very Christian town, Catholic town, excuse me, that their blood was being sucked out of them and that it was a demonic entity. But when the only doctor of the area, there's only one clinic in this town, she noticed that all of these witnesses had 3 puncture wounds if they were male in the jugular area, and if they were female in the chest area. Of course, there were some in the thighs and in the stomach area as well, but the most prevalent were in the throat and in the chest. Exactly.
Yeah, in the chest. And they also said that beams of light would come down and blast him in the chest too as well. How terrifying, right? When you hear the Calora story, how terrified would your family be if you couldn't go out at night, because if you did, you were getting hunted down by a flying saucer that was going to blast you? I mean,
There's no words.
That's a crazy way to live. Lima, when he did the interviews with AJ Gaver, he did drawings. He did drawings of his encounter. He did drawings of the ship, and after he did that, they were just, when you see these, we're talking about, he was like a colonel or a captain at the time. What happened to Lima?
He allegedly committed suicide about 2 months after he did the interview with UFO magazine. But what's interesting about that case, and Jimmy, you and I have talked about it in detail, is the situation in which it happened to him, where he got a bathrobe and he tied it around his neck. It didn't fully make sense. And Jimmy, can you explain why?
No, because you're my guest. So let me go to the next part of this, though. If you look at, and I love the way that AJ did that interview with Lima, but it was Lima's demeanor there. This wasn't a guy that was about to commit suicide, right? He didn't. You know what I mean? What did you think when you hear the reports of him committing suicide 2 months later? The guy that's on camera looks pretty together, doesn't he?
From my knowledge, he does. And there were other accounts of where people spoke to those that were close to Lima and stated that he was a man that loved life and that he wasn't the type to take his own. But looking back at these witnesses that had these puncture wounds, that went through something that was so traumatizing, I have to ask, were they attacks or were they some form of medical scanning? I mean, if it was medical scanning and having those damaging physical effects, just imagine if they meant to harm people. Yes, it seems brutal and inhumane, but it's like the people were just cattle or lab rats potentially to these craft that were seen in the area.
Now, the other part of this case was a lot of video, a lot of photographs, a lot of data collected, a lot of interviews, a lot of things were done. The doctor, you just mentioned her name. She was, I would consider her a whistleblower. She was pissed off. She saw all of the stuff going on, and she was very verbal and went public with everything. But that's only a part of the case. I think what was even more significant was the Brazilian military's admitting of them having camped out on these beaches with their video cameras for like 2 or 3 months, and were out there all night, every night, capturing stuff in the skies. That's a pretty big admission from the Brazilian government, don't you think?
It definitely is, and it makes you question why there are so many military entities across the globe that would keep that so hush-hush. Why would the Brazilian government be more open about something like that? It did take a long time to receive that documentation where it is now public. Once again, that took place in 1977. We didn't receive not even half of the paperwork in 2002 or 3, give or take, the early 2000s. And there's still a lot that is placed in a cabinet somewhere. Yes, we have a good amount. Is it sufficient? It'll do for now. But I think what I'm most curious about is the ones that haven't been made public. What information is there that they think that the public cannot handle?
Yeah, we haven't seen any of the video that they've shot.
That's right. Yeah, we've only seen drawings and we've only gotten witness testimonies. We have not seen the video. And that is something that makes me question, if you're going to give us all this other stuff, why not just bring over everything? Because having to filter through all of that data that you collected for about 4 or 5 months, that's a lot of work. Just pass it on over to the public and we'll do that work for you. Don't even worry about it.
Oh, what is it about Brazil? Some of the most amazing cases, every country's got their own, that's for sure. But Brazil has got more than their fair share.
You think so?
I do. The documentary that came out with Jacques Vallée about the 12-year-old Brazilian boy, I'm trying to think when that came out. Oh, that might have been Argentina. Well, does it count if it's South America? Right.
Absolutely.
But you have Virginia.
Right.
Right. And the case that just happened down there 5 years ago, 4 years ago, started with an M. Oh, I can't believe I can't remember the name of the city.
I know which one you're talking about, and we covered it, and now it is
Mays, Brazil.
I don't know, but I have my notes for that show.
Yeah, somebody just said it was Argentina, but Brazil just seems to the cases that they've had down there were like landings, contact, entities. And then the United States Air Force coming in, Magé, Brazil.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Magé.
Yes,
Magé, Brazil. And then the United States steps in like Magé, Brazil, right? That was the other part of that case, which is just recent, where it appears that there's an agreement between Brazil and the United States that we're going to get you involved in anything strange that happens here. So it seems that every time something strange has happened, the United States have stepped in and flown everything back to the United States. And when they do that, where do you think they're taking these bodies, these crafts?
I don't know, but I want to be on that plane so that I know what base they're taking that to, because I don't know. We've heard a lot of base names throughout the decades, throughout the research, where some cases it's the Holloman Air Force Base, some cases it's some other ones. And if that information is made public, like even if people are speculating on that, it's probably not there. That's my opinion, Sam. Look, I'm sharing my opinion here. I
About
don't think that's the case.
time. I feel like I'm grilling a witness in a murder case up on the stand, and I just got to get, I've got to get from one point to the other. And I'm going to do it as elegantly as possible, but I will get the answers for the jury. Here is the thing, though, with all of this. What does the United States know? What are they, getting from other countries that are cooperating when it comes to ET and UFOs, and where this stuff is going? And then we have this missing UFO report, which would indicate that our government knows something or it does not. So before we get to the UFO report, do you think that the United States government has all the information we need about ET, but they're just not talking?
Probably not. I think.
Really?
Here
Wow.
we go. I think. Here's my opinion.
About time.
Jimmy.
About time.
It's about time. When we are looking at any government or any entity of power, they're never going to let you know their weaknesses. And if anything, they're going to state, I have all the information, but I'm not going to share it with you. When in reality, that simply might not be the case. And a conversation that has been laid out pretty recently in the field, in the UFO field, is where we're having all of these now private industries looking into the UFO phenomenon, but they don't owe anybody anything, right? Because they're using their own money to conduct the research and to find the answers that they're looking for, right? That no one can file a FOIA against them to get that information like with the government. So could it be that these private entities have more knowledge over the government?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a possibility. And I don't think that the government has all the answers. Could that potentially be a reason for a delay in the UFO report? Well, it's been a case of crickets. There hasn't been any report. All the mainstream media has done is echo the statement that although they have received hundreds of new cases that are being investigated, so far no evidence of an extraterrestrial origin to the UFOs have been found. But Sean Kirkpatrick, who is the director of the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, has not ruled out the possibility of extraterrestrial life and has said that he is taking a scientific approach to the research going forward. So I don't think that there is anything suspicious about the delay. Rather, I think it's potentially tied up in bureaucratic red tape and probably a hot potato for like those newbie officials trying to make sense of it all, maybe. But I don't think the government has all the answers to the topic.
See, that wasn't so hard, Christina. That wasn't so hard, was it? Look, just to mark this fabulous occasion, that was at 7:41 p.m. I got my first opinion. There you go. It has been written down. But why? You're exactly right. And then if we have this clear line in the sand where the military and the government is protected and separated from this information by the private sector in a secret access program where there's no money trail and there's no oversight, right? And this is indeed the case. Should we change that? Should we change that rule so we could and should go and find out what these companies and corporations have and are working on? Should that change?
Of course it should, but how many people have the patience to fill out the paperwork, have it be verified, have it go through so many hands, right? Of course, we all have this good intention of attempting to do that, but how many are willing to put in the work?
Well, the problem is, and I think it's a clear one. The problem is the private sector has been protected for so long with this that they really don't give a crap, right? And so how do you figure out the way to get them scared, right? To get them worried that, oh, no, you know what? We do need to talk about this. Because right now they just don't care. They have no fear. right?
That's right. There are no consequences. There's
No
nothing holding them back. They
right.
don't have to get funded by the government through taxes because they make their own money.
Well, and look, you don't speed in your car. Well, you do. You do. But
I'm a good driver.
most people, they don't want to exceed the speed limit. Why? They don't want a speeding ticket, right? They don't want to pay the speeding ticket. They don't want that on their record, and they don't want their insurance going up. Now, that's reason enough to to behave. But private corporations don't have that fear, right? There is nothing. There was nobody that's going to walk up and knock on the door and go, "Let me see the secret craft." It's not going to happen.
You're right. They don't get scared. There is no one person who will be held accountable, especially with the nationals who end up at Davos and other power player meetings. So I'm not it's not what you know, it's who you know. And same as arm dealers, okay? They are a global cabal of power and knowledge.
Did you just say Davos? That's a really good point, though. That's a really good point. And to that, we had today the story broke, and this came from Newsweek. That 2 days ago, today's the 5th, right? So 2 days ago, January 3rd, Russia says, this is Russia now. This is what they say. They say they shot down a UFO. And when something like that, this is Newsweek magazine. This isn't some trash tabloid like the Daily Star out of London or whatever, the Sun out of the UK. This is Newsweek magazine. And the governor of that province literally said, we had to make the decision to liquidate it. And the air defenses went up and shot this thing down. The description was a ball. It was a ball, right? Not a drone. It was a ball. It was a white ball of light. And they shot it down out of the sky. You think that was not of this earth? You think that was terrestrial? And why use UFO unless you thought that it was something else?
The description is so minimal in the article, and I went ahead and I attempted to look at other articles to see if they provided more information. However, every single article pulled their information from Newsweek. So there wasn't anything unique about any of the articles that I came across aside from that original one, which, yes, it is compelling. Yes, we're getting UFOs in the news, which is awesome. I'm always happy with that. But the information and the details are so limited. At least for myself, I can't make a conclusion on if it's extraterrestrial or from Earth because we just don't get enough to make a conclusion aside from what one of the Russian officials said, we need to liquidate it. Well, it can go one of two ways. Do they think it's a UFO, or is it a narrative of some kind for you to look one way and not the other?
This is not that far from the Ukraine, right? This is and the firing up of anti-aircraft systems right now is something that people are prepared for. You don't know about a drone flying over, a missile, an errant thing, an enemy aircraft. All of this, everybody's on high alert, right?
That's right.
So I would think, Christina, this is where I find this report very interesting, that nobody said, oh, we thought it was a Ukrainian drone. We thought that it was Chinese. We thought that it was Iranian, whatever. There was nothing like that, where you would have thought that with everybody. I mean, seriously, everybody is just nervous right now. And you have something like that would be the first reaction, right? That this
Doesn't that almost make you hesitate, though? Jimmy? Because we've heard time and time again, even to like the more recent sightings where, no, it's a weather balloon, no, it's Venus, no, it's swamp gas. And then now you're getting this one punch in the face and you're like, what am I supposed to think?
Okay, so Christina, yes, but here's where you err in that opinion. Is this everybody wants the blame game right now?
Of course.
Right. So let's say it is a UFO, Zeta Reticuli. You're still going to say it's Ukrainian, right? And so to go the opposite of that and jump on the UFO thing, when the opportunity is there for the blame game, I find that really interesting. Remember when, not to stay on Ukraine and geopolitics and the war that's going on over there, but when they had that Russian missile allegedly land in Poland last month, that was a big deal, right? Oh, man, Russian missiles landing in Poland, and everybody was real nervous. And it turned out it wasn't a Russian missile. It was a Ukrainian anti-missile that landed in Poland. But the blame game was immediately there. When Ukraine themselves knew it was their own missile, but they didn't say anything because the blame game is going to get fired up first. And that's what's interesting here is that the blame game stayed out of this article. And the blame game was clearly put on UFOs. Very interesting.
It is. That's all I have to say about that, is that it is interesting. It makes you question what was the purpose for it, because it hasn't followed that same narrative that the mainstream media has taken for decades.
Yeah. She does 15 shows a week, and she answers that question with, meh. Yeah, I guess. Here, but here, for me, here is the interesting thing. This is, as far as I know, this is the first time I have ever heard of a UFO being shot down. I've never heard that before. Missiles lock up, guns
At least
don't
not publicly, yeah.
Right. We hear those stories, right? Tehran, we can go over so many different cases where the weapon systems are completely shut down, and so forth. But this case, it's the UFO. I think this is the first time I've ever heard this kind of reporting, and it's Newsweek that brings it to us. I think it's a pretty big deal.
It is. And talking about, because we did a show on nukes and UFOs, and I feel like one case that is particularly I wouldn't say important, but that's like important to mention for this conversation about Russia and Ukraine is one that we talked about, and that took place in 1982 in Soviet Ukraine, part of the USSR until 1992. And that was the Bilogo-Ruvichi case.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is probably one of my favorite cases when it comes to nukes and UFOs, aside, of course, from the Maelstrom Air Force Base with Robert Salas. But this one in particular, and I have my notes down so I can give you the accurate data that I have here, is that we have heard time and time again of missiles being tested and then a UFO coming and either shooting it down or disabling it. But with this case that took place in Soviet Ukraine, which is just, now Ukraine, what happened with this case in particular was instead of deactivating the missile, the UFO craft supposedly turned all of them on, and they were ready to shoot out and just cause a mass panic across the globe. And then at the very last moment, they shut it down. They're like, no, we're just kidding. Just a joke.
Mm-hmm.
But it was not funny then. They're probably they are probably peeing themselves. But looking back at it now, where once again you have supposedly a lot of UFO craft, when they see nuclear testing, they shut it down. In this case, they were like, oh, you want to play with these toys? Let's see what happens.
Can you imagine? Right? You're there.
No.
Somebody called the Americans. We need to tell them UFOs are shooting our nuclear weapons, right? I mean, that's because that's the conversation, right? You can't say we accidentally, fired a bunch of nuclear missiles. You can't say no. It's the blame game, right? And you gotta blame it. You gotta blame it on the Germans. I mean the ETs. You gotta blame the ETs. Let's take a quick break here, Christina. You stay right there. We've got lots more to discuss tonight. Cristina Gomez is our guest. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. And we'll be right back. Billy Carson's Forbidden Knowledge. ForbiddenKnowledge.com or ForbiddenKnowledge.tv, where you can get access to over 6,000 videos, movies, TV series, exclusive documentaries like the Black Knight Satellite. You can do it all for just $7.77 per month or $77 per year after the 3-day trial, which is also totally free to check out. It's all simple to do. Billy Carson is the best. It's simple. ForbiddenKnowledge.com or ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's the number 4BK. I will be hosting and emceeing the Conscious Life Expo this February 10th through the 13th at the LAX Hilton right here in Los Angeles, California. 200 speakers, including Linda Moulton Howe, Bashar, Deborah King, George Norrie, Daniel Sheehan, Scott Walter Johnstone, and David Wolf. Over 200 vendors, special events. This is the biggest event of its kind on planet Earth. You've got to come and hang out with all of us. Tickets and info at ConsciousLifeExpo.com. The links are below. On Saturday, April 1st, that's right, April Fool's Day 2023, I will be hosting the Parapod Festival at the Hyatt Regency right here in Valencia, California. It's a live one-day podcast awards. It's a film festival. It's a full-on media event. We're going to have sky watching. There's going to be a Lifetime Achievement Award presented to Linda Moulton Howe. Right now, you can submit your podcast, your film, your TV series, any of your paranormal media for consideration. You can do all of that on the links below. For info and tickets, go to parapodfilmfest.com. That's parapodfilmfest.com. April 7th through the 14th, 2023, I'll be hosting and presenting on the Hidden Secrets Seminar at Sea Cruise. From Los Angeles to the Mexican Riviera on the Navigator of the Seas. That's right, up top, a giant water slide. You've got to check out the Navigator of the Seas. It's amazing. We've got Scott Walter, Adam Apollo, Nick Pope, Brad Olson, Vivian Chauvet, Jason Shirka, Robert Grant, Ruben Langdon, and another 12 amazing speakers and presenters. It's all simple to do. Just visit divinetravels.com/Hidden Secrets 2023. You know you want to go on a cruise with me. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church, and tonight Cristina Gomez is with us. And if I took the time, everybody, to list all of Cristina's shows, but let me just say this. The best website for you, how many do I have listed for you right now?
I just have one website, and that's strangeparadigms.com. There you can find all of the shows in video and podcast formats, along with a bunch of other stuff as well.
You've got youtube.com Paradigm Shifts. You've got twitter.com Eyes on the Sky. So you've got tiktok.com Eyes on the Sky. So you've got facebook.com Paradigm Shifts official. You have Instagram Strange Paradigms. Yeah. That's a lot of, do you post to each one of those individually, or do you have some some kind of technology where you're just, one post and everything goes out?
So I currently post them individually, but I do know what you're referring to, and I'm looking into getting that because it'd just be so much easier to have just one program and then posts it everywhere, which would be fantastic. But I need to do a little bit more research on that. But for the time being, I'm just posting everywhere individually, and it's a lot of platforms, including Discord.
It is. Now, I've hired people. That's it, man. I'm done. I'm done with that. I'm done with that. I just here you go. Just act like you're me and post, and it's the only way to get, I admit it. I admit it. And I had somebody, I was just in Miami over the weekend for New Year's, and I had somebody come up to me literally and say, "So, Church, that's not you posting on social media, is it?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Because I specifically posted and asked a couple of questions, and the responses I got back, it wasn't you." I said, it was him, and I pointed, and it was really funny. But I can't keep up with all of it.
It's hard.
I don't know how you do. I can't read every post or reply or comment. I just can't do it anymore. It was so easy and fun in the beginning, right? One account and staying there and hanging out with it's not that kind of party today. You've got to literally. I was watching last night. I was watching a movie. My phone beeps and a friend of ours, it was Billy Carson. He's starting a live stream. I was like, "Oh, I'll check out Billy's live stream." Okay, boom, I click on it, and they talked about it there. And his guest said, "So where are we streaming to right now?" And Billy goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 platforms. And that's what it takes today, right? You're not just doing one thing. It's everything everywhere all at once, which I think I should make a movie.
Sounds good to me. I'll watch it.
Everything
about how to manage your social media.
Here's the deal. We just talked about Maje, Virginia, right? And Brazil. We talked to Mexico, the United States. We haven't jumped into Canada. We still could, but there's a lot of stuff to see. And one of my favorite things to do is when I'm on your show to watch people donate to the RV fund that you've got going on, that you didn't start. This is these are your listeners and your fan base that have started this thing. Where did the idea come up originally to get an RV? Was it during this show, or is it this period, or is this something you thought about for a long time?
So I started seriously thinking about it my senior year in high school
Oh,
of purchasing an RV and living on the road. Now that plan has changed a lot since then, mainly because when I was younger in high school, I just didn't like this rigid lifestyle that people were living, where they had to stay in one place for several decades, work a 9 to 5 job, things like this. And I've never really enjoyed that. I've attempted to have those types of jobs, and I never enjoyed them. But as this show progressed, I thought, instead of just like living on the road, why not, while having this channel, visit UFO hotspots, paranormal hotspots, and write everything down, document everything? Because the channel that I have, which is under my name, Cristina Gomez, no H, by the way, it's all about journaling my adventures, my curiosities, and the things that I'm learning as I go along. what I had mentioned in the first half of the show is that it originally all started with UFOs. That's how I got into creating a YouTube channel and then doing the research, right? But as I progressed and I spoke to more people and I was doing more research, I was jumping down all these different rabbit holes and I began to realize that there is a convergence between the UFO phenomenon and the paranormal. And then that led into so many other rabbit holes to the point now, Jimmy, where we've done shows on Mysteries with a History, where we look at an entire country. For instance, this last one, The Mysteries of Australia,
Mhm.
where we spoke about UFO sightings, we spoke about cryptids, spoke about disappearances, and they're all under this category of the unexplained. And so for myself, that's what I want to document while traveling across the United States and just decking it out with really good research equipment as well. And to bring everyone with me on the journey because there's a lot of people that want to go on the road and do research, but not many execute it because it's a very difficult dream to pursue. It takes a lot of dedication and it takes a lot of understanding equipment, safety as well, camping knowledge. I mean, there's so many factors that go into it. Luckily, I've had 5 years to prepare. I will be graduating this year from the university, which I could not be more excited because it's college. I mean, you either love it or you hate it, and I was on that side of, like, not loving it. I was
Not
it
loving college or the idea of getting an RV and
oh, no, not not loving college. I come from a
I
strict
love school. You know what?
it's look, it's not for everyone. I came from a strict Latin household, and I've always enjoyed learning, but there have been many aspects when it comes to the school system where they tell you, "All right, your answers are A, B, C, or D. Pick one." And you can't really ask questions beyond that. I am not thoroughly liked by my professors because I ask some questions that they simply find difficulty answering. And I'm not there to put them on the spot at all, but I truly want to understand. When I speak to people, I want to understand what their specialty is and also their perspective as well. And so when it comes to even my professors, I'm like, but can you explain why? And they
Mhm.
just said, I don't get paid enough to tell you why, but this is the answer. And I'm like, do you know how much it costs to go to university? Do you have any idea? I'm a self-funded college student. Like I am paying you big bucks to give me the answer.
Yeah,
And
answer
they're like,
the
no.
question, damn it. So,
Exactly.
you're also a communications major, minor?
That's correct. So it's a communication major, a business minor.
Business minor. Okay, so when you go down the communications path, there are so many different areas to also get into and to learn. Are you doing any film or video editing, filmmaking, documentary style? Are you taking any classes for that?
Yes, over the summer, I did take a documentary and filmmaking class. And with that knowledge, I am going to be using that for the RV while, like, during that time where I'll be filming. But also, I plan on creating documentaries as well, which is going to be super exciting. It takes a crazy amount of work, but with the
Well,
with
did you shoot a documentary for the class, a short?
yes, yes, we were required to film, I mean, definitely not like an hour
Yeah,
and a
I
half
no, I
long,
get
but
it.
like kind of like a practice to
Right.
get graded on and understand the basics.
Christina, just say yes so I can get
Yes.
to the next question. Okay, the
Okay.
next
Yes.
question is was it about UFOs or Bigfoot?
It was, you know what? I'll let you take a guess.
I just did. Was it UFOs or Bigfoot?
Okay, but out of those 2, take a guess.
Bigfoot. Bigfoot.
You
It, it,
betcha.
it it was okay. So, and when you're in the, I love this because I went through all of this myself. So the school has got a lot of cool stuff, right? They've got
That's right.
computers, editing equipment, they've got cameras, they've got lights, they've got microphones, maybe a dolly or two, and you are able to battery packs, battery belts, and you're able to go out and do your stuff, right? Right.
That's right.
Okay. Now, did you Do the obvious. Did you turn to your teacher, professor, whoever's running? Did you hold up the camera and go, which one of these can I shoot a UFO with? Which one of these best captures a Bigfoot in the wilderness? Did you ask that question? Very important question.
I had to ask those questions, so I knew what camcorder to purchase and make the smart buy, because let me just tell you, Jimmy, this
Yes.
equipment is expensive if you want the good stuff, and I want the good stuff to create the best quality content.
Okay, so this is actually one of the best questions I have ever seen on Fade to Black. This is from Kurt M. Question to Christina and Jimmy, because I want Christina's answer to this. I can give you my answer. What digital audio workstation do you two use? Okay, Christina, what do you use? Do you use hardware? Do you use software? Do you use a combination of both when you capture your audio?
So I have a MIDI keyboard, which I also use for my music as well. But when it comes to this, I do use DAW, which for those that don't know is a digital audio workstation, and then I use the process of working with tones and oscillators and the granular mod plugins as well.
But that's for music. But
Yeah.
the question is, what software are you using on your digital audio workstation on your computer?
I use FL Studio and Acid Pro.
Okay. So, and both record audio. So if you're recording, so you do your edits there too as well.
I do my audio edits there, but I also, like, for video, I use Vegas.
I use Vegas too. Love Vegas.
Yeah, it's a learning curve when you first start, but it has so much flexibility.
Yeah. I have all that Adobe stuff. For my audio, I use Adobe Audition. I've talked about this a lot. I've been involved with the company since it first started. And I love it. And it's also the industry standard.
That's
And
right.
every radio station or newsroom across the country professionally, that's what they use. And also in most, I'm going to say most newsrooms, they use Vegas.
It's a standard.
It's a standard. And also, I know this is going to freak some people out, but listen to me because this is a great question, Kurt. It's a PC world. All right. It's not a Mac world. You don't see Macs at radio stations. You'll see Macs in a newsroom. In a general sense. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't rebels out there. And if you
And
go,
they struggle. They're rebels that struggle when they use Mac.
That's right. So now in a music studio, you're going to see Macs and Pro Tools. But when it comes to TV and radio production, what is used is PCs, and on that it's Adobe Audition and Sony Vegas. And that way, all of the platforms are consistent across the country, and that's it. There's no questions about it, and file exchanges and things. And for speed, you have to, in some cases, well, in a lot of cases, this is the way things go down. You'll see one of those trucks pull up, right, and they're there. A reporter comes out with a producer, right, and they're doing their thing. The edits for their show, that goes down in the truck. They jump in there. They got a PC, right? And they're going in and blah, 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 blah. And they put together what's called a donut. There's another reason for that. And that, that goes off and goes back to the TV station for the news broadcast. But speed-wise, PC, and that's what they use. That's it. There isn't anything outside of that. So I hope that answers your question, Kurt. And I hope he wasn't hoping you were going to say, "Oh no, I use Pro Tools. I've got a 24 IO Pro Tools rig."
They're going to say like iMovie or something, which is just the worst. But I do use Adobe Audition for like podcast cleaning up and vocals. But I do also use After Effects to do a lot of like my visuals for the show, especially the Unknown Zone, but also for like music videos on my music channel as well. So I use a lot of different programs that are very specific to the show or the thing that I want to use it for.
The importance of that, if you are going to be mobile, right? You're going to be living in this RV. You're going to have your audio and video production equipment there. You're going to be shooting a documentary over a good length of time. That means you're going to be editing and your special effects and everything else in your audio production. All of this is going to go down in the RV.
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm gonna figure that one out as I go along, but I'm excited. I'm mentally prepared. I just don't know how it's gonna turn out. For me, like the most important thing where it comes to purchasing an RV is that it needs to have a washer and dryer. For those that were in college, you understand my struggle of not having a washer and dryer at home. So you have to go to a laundromat and you have to dedicate several hours of your day every week or every other week to go there, and then you fear that someone's going to steal all of your clothes. I've had someone steal my towels for no reason. And so my main requirement is just to have a washer and dryer.
Not the towels.
I know, right? So then no. Here's the worst part about that story, Jimmy, is that I found out someone stole my towels and I'm like, these are not even nice, okay? So then I run to the store and I purchase some more cheap ones. I come back to wash those because they're brand new.
Mm.
And then they return my towels.
So now you
I
got
was
a double set.
furious.
You didn't return the other ones.
No, because I had already washed them.
Oh.
I was so upset. I was like, what am I going to do with all these extra towels now?
Yeah. What about? I want to ask you two questions, and I hope they're not too strange. Have you thought about shooting at night and how to capture something? Because shooting the stars, whether it's with video or a camera, still camera, or even a cell phone, it's always a challenge, right? Long exposures with telescopes to capture that stuff. But you're going to be out there filming at night a good chunk of the time. How are you going to pull that off?
Well, I do have the Aurora Psionics Pro, and I am planning on purchasing some more like night vision type equipment as well, so that it will be more versatile when filmmaking, to have one that can record at night next to your average camcorder as well. Because what I've noticed with people that have had UFO experiences or that capture something on film, excuse me, it's better to have two because they are able to see in different light spectrums, right? But I am also getting a Pulsar Helion Pro XP2 as well, which is just an amazing thermal camera, which basically doubles as night vision, which is insane.
What about? Are you going to solar power this thing?
That would be cool.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
You know, when I think everybody knows by now, I've been shopping. I haven't pulled the trigger. I've narrowed it down to one or two different types. I'm looking at small teardrop trailers, right? And a teardrop trailer for everybody looks something like, I don't have the ability to, but a teardrop trailer. So if this is Fred Flintstone, but if that's my Jeep, oh, can you see it? Oh man, don't tell me. Okay.
Oh, I see it.
If that's my Jeep, right?
Yeah.
The teardrop trailer looks like that behind it.
Which is like only a bed, right? It's nothing else in there.
No, there's no washer and dryer, Christina. There's no washer and dryer. But one of the options, there's no toilet, there's no shower, there's nothing in there. You just use that to keep you from getting eaten by bears. That's the reason for a tier. But the one option is solar power. I think that is pretty crucial. to have that, because you're going to be in a lot of areas where you're not going to have access to AC power. And then once your batteries run down, they run down. And you're going to need that for a lot of reasons, obviously for cell phones, but for communications, maybe to heat. What about batteries for your water heater? Or things like that. I think are very, very important. So yeah, I'm definitely, with my teardrop, I'm going to have solar power.
It seems like it's the way to go now when purchasing motorhomes is to have solar panels. There's a good amount of them that already have them up there, and there's many that you have to purchase and add. But overall, yeah, you really got to think about those things, that when you're in the middle of nowhere and when there's no hookup,
You have to do
how
it.
are
You
you
have
going to
to
get
do
that
it.
energy?
Yeah, you have to do it. And now, I'm going to. There's a way to bring all of this back to UFOs, but before we get there, I'm curious, what size are we talking about here? Because I'm looking at you and I'm picturing a little 16-foot tiny little RV, with a 4-cylinder engine, something cute.
No, it's got to be a really good size, because not only will I be filming in it, but I'm also planning on making at least a tiny studio for creating music as well. So I'm looking at a good 30 feet RV.
Um, did 3 and a 0?
Yeah, the big 3-0.
That's the size of a semi truck with a trailer. I mean, that's big.
Well,
Okay, so with something like that, that means you're going to have the ability, you're going to have the extended range and the size to just about go anywhere that you want.
heck yeah.
Okay, first UFO hotspot. Where are you going? No, are you? Okay, and I know that you probably got all of this planned out. Are you alternating Bigfoot UFO, Bigfoot UFO, or do you have where's spot number one and why?
So the first location is going to be the Uinta Basin in Utah. That is the number one place that I'm going, because after doing the research on the entire state of Utah, it is a whack state. Like, that state
It's whack.
it's whack.
It's whack. It's way
All
whack.
of it, like the entire state.
Yep.
And so that would be my very first location to go to, very specifically the Uinta Basin, because there's a lot going on there and a lot of things to research and cover. And Brandon Fugel has invited me to Skinwalker Ranch, so that's obviously a part of the list of places to go and to document. So overall, I've been planning this for years now, and I have a whole list of all the places that I want to stop at, including restaurants.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm a
That's the
foodie.
most important part. UFOs are second down the list. You
Yeah,
can't go
it's
UFO hunting
food,
with-
cat
Yes,
cafes, and
100%.
then UFOs.
100%. Don't tell Brandon that you're showing up with me. You want to make sure that you get through the gates, and then I'll be right behind you, and I'll sneak in before the gates.
The gates close, right?
Yeah,
No, have to.
You're absolutely right. And after you leave Skinwalker, there's Blind Frog Ranch. There's all kinds of other things
That's
in
right.
that area. But there must. Okay, so stop number 2 in order of importance.
I think from there, we'll just kind of be scouting out areas of the Uinta Basin. But then, if I had to travel to a different state, if we're talking about like other places to visit, of course, Jimmy, of course, it's going to be the Bridgewater Triangle,
Oh,
because of Pukwudgie.
okay. So that's
Sorry, Puck.
a 3-day, 4-day drive across the country.
There's a bed there, there's a bathroom, there's a kitchen, so
There is.
I'm good to go.
Okay, so you're not going to strategically put pins on a map and hit a bunch of things along. You're just going to go Skinwalker, Bridgewater, and then swing it back down to Roswell, New Mexico, and then go back to the Serpent Mound, and then down to the coral you're in Florida. You're just going to do that. You're going to do these huge
Oh,
drives.
no. Well, while I'm driving from one point to another, I'll make those stops as well.
Okay.
But
Just want to make sure.
also places including like Washington, Oregon, and places that I have been given a heads up on that I should check out, including areas of paranormal activity as well, because not only will I be looking at UFO hotspots, but also haunted locations. And I have been invited by some TV ghost hunting teams to join them on specific investigations as well. So while doing all of these travel journeys, there will be a purpose for each location that I go to, and also that midway as well.
When I love the cryptid part of this, and of course the Bigfoot, but aspect of your research and your questions and your interest. But back when you and I started doing shows together, and you were working at the debrief at the time, and just so that everybody knows, Christina and I have never met. We've only done this virtually now for almost 2 years, but Christina first caught my attention with the debrief, and I always looked at you. I mean, it was with blinders on, but somebody with an extreme interest in UFOs, and that was it. That's the way I look at the debrief in general. Anyway, right? That's just me. I'm pretty close, but science and UFOs. But now that we have strung a year of shows together, you've taken a right-hand turn off of the freeway and are now into a dirt road going through the middle of a cornfield in search of cryptids and everything cryptid-ish. Were you into cryptids growing up, or did this happen because of meeting strange people?
The latter.
Yeah,
Definitely.
right.
I mean, I've always liked like myths and legends. Those have always been great, but not to the extent of like actually being interested fully in, in researching cryptids and things like that. And I would like to mention that you bring up you said something that is important. We've never met in person. I've actually never met anyone in these fields or topics. I do not travel because of school and work, so I have literally met nobody
Mhm.
in the field. But when looking at the topic of cryptids, it's a it's a wild conversation to have, because there's a lot of locations and there's a lot of locals that have local stories about certain cryptids. But then if you go into like areas like the big city, they're going to be like, nah, those are not real, never heard of it, never grew up with those stories. So it really just depends on where you grew up and your environment, who you're surrounded by, to get those types of interests. Well, I've always been interested in like the unexplained, but more specifically with UFOs. I didn't expect, like, if I were to talk to myself 2 years ago, I wouldn't expect to have a conversation about cryptids.
Mhm.
But I do find the reports of cryptids at the same time as UFOs being seen incredibly fascinating. And it's more common than you'd think.
When I mean, w- when I grew up, and I realized that I've got a few decades on you, but when I grew up, we were talking about the same creatures, the same ideas that we talk about today. When I was growing up, and TV shows like Sightings and whatever, in the 70s, it was about Bigfoot and the Loch Ness monster and ghosts and the paranormal and things, right? That's just, and the sightings were everywhere. Chupacabras, when that kicked off, I'm not looking up the dates right now, but my memory says that was 1980, 81, 82, somewhere in there. I know by the time I came to California in 85, chupacabras were everywhere. I mean, the whole conversation about it, throughout, going from I think it started in Puerto Rico, somewhere over there, Cuba, and eventually you had reports that were happening all over Central America and then over into Mexico. But these reports were there. Chupacabra is not some modern thing. and these myths and legends that we cover on your show from different in indigenous cultures. This goes back thousands of years. Cryptids are not something new.
No, they have been told throughout history from generation to generation. And uh, one thing about chupacabras and why they're special to me, not because I'm familiar with the topic, which I am not at all, even though we very briefly covered it together once for one show, but it's actually because I was exposed to that topic of chupacabras because of one episode of Scooby-Doo, where they did like this whole case in Mexico and they spoke
Did they
about
really?
chupacabras. And that was the
What?
first time I was ever exposed to these cryptids. And then, of course, they pulled off the mask and it was actually a person and it wasn't a chupacabra. But that's why for me that particular topic is dear to my heart, is because I grew up on Scooby-Doo. Loved that show. And it was because of them I got exposed to it.
I'm looking at it right here. Scooby-Doo and the Monster of Mexico.
Yes. It was such a great movie. No,
I did not
TV show?
know. I did not know. I'm looking at it right here.
Good.
And really?
It's really good. I haven't seen it in decades. No, a decade.
Who knew? But they would do that a lot. If you go back to Johnny Quest, certainly Scooby-Doo, but there were different shows. I remember specifically Johnny Quest. They had this whole Bigfoot episode, and Bigfoot was terrorizing this town, and specifically this mansion. And in the end, right, they pull it out, and it's a costume, and it's the whatever. But the whole episode was Bigfoot terrorizing everybody, and it turned out. But this is what kids are taught, right? You see this in a cartoon, and now it's not about Bigfoot being hoaxed and it's a mask. No, you're just being taught about Bigfoot.
Exactly.
You're being taught about monsters and chupacabra.
Exactly. And what makes me take a breath, Jimmy, is when I think I have a handle on all these mysterious topics, a new rabbit hole comes along. And this happens literally every single week with guest interviews, the show we do, and we live in such a strange and mysterious world. And it's exciting and it keeps my mind definitely sharp and curious. And I want my peers, people in my age group, to get into these questions, to try and have these discussions with friends or other students at university. If it is practically impossible, and they don't want to unless they have smoked something first. But then you have this community that you've created, that I've created, where we can have these conversations so freely. And I want to get more young minds into these topics, into these communities, because as we hear with every single generation, is that our children are our future. And if we educate them right, our future will be bright.
Scooby-Doo meets El Chupacabra. You should see the Chupacabra chasing the Mystery Machine, the van. Oh, man, it's just so classic. It won't let me download it. I hate that. I want to download the picture and post it to everybody. But it's pretty classic, man. It is pretty classic. And if I, you know what? Since they won't let me download it, since they're playing hard to get, I'll do it my own way. I have technology.
There you go. That's the way to do it. Scooby-Doo.
This is the way to do it. You go like this. Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Machine. I mean, tell me that isn't the coolest thing ever, everybody. Scooby-Doo.
It's the best.
Eats El Chupacabra. Look at Chupacabra. Look. How cool is that?
It goes to show how influential TV shows actually are, because that stuck with me. And I watched that when I was like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8. Maybe.
Well, you're going to go to your mom, your dad. Hey, mom, what's a chupacabra? Right? You're going to do that. Somebody posted, I forget what it was, In Search Of. And that show did more for me, Christina, exposing me to all kinds of crazy stuff. And it was right there for you. I know you said Scooby Doo meets El Chupacabra, but did you watch any of this investigative TV, like Sightings or In Search of, or what, Ancient Aliens? Did you watch any of this stuff growing up?
So I've only recently been I've watched in search of, but how much better can it get to have Spock talk about these mysteries? Leonard Nimoy. I mean, it could not get better than that.
Yeah, it's true.
Which is amazing. I have watched Ancient Aliens. Funny enough, my mom is a big fan of the TV show. She loves it. Excuse me. But I also really got interested in the unexplained through the TV show The Twilight Zone. It was my father who got me into that, and they have a marathon on the Sci-Fi Channel every single New Year for like 48 hours.
Mhm.
So, you know what I was doing over the New Year was watching that. But it's because of television, because of movies that so many people have these interests more so than just having like your day-to-day conversation at the grocery store or at school, for instance. You're probably going to learn more or have your interest sparked through television. While that can be disappointing to say for some, it's the truth at this point.
Call your RV the Mystery Machine.
See that, but it's not unique. I had people give me names like the Ramen Wagon because I have a
That's cool.
huge love for ramen, or even like the Ramen Enigma, which whenever the word, okay, talking about these connections, the word enigma, I learned that from SpongeBob when Patrick said, "My mind is an enigma," and then he's like, "Is mayonnaise an instrument?" And it's because of him I figured out what enigma meant at the age of like 6.
I just thought of it. Rendezvous with Ramen.
That's a cool name.
That's a cool one. And for those of you out there, you know where I stole it from. Don't give it away here in the chat. Just let me enjoy my own genius.
Ramen.
And theatrics is half of the sale. But
This is true.
What is it though? I am so curious. And at this point, you can ask me the same question, okay? Which is fine. You can lob it back at me. But since you started broadcasting, what is it that you have learned?
A lot. I've learned a lot to better present myself because when you're talking to a camera, you're not actually talking to a person. So that it takes a learning curve. I had mentioned at the very first show we did, what, a year, 2 years ago now? I don't even remember. I had mentioned how I suffer with the speech impediment. I grew up having speech issues, having a stutter, also eating the ends of my words. I also have dyslexia and verbal dyslexia. And with doing these shows several times a week, it has challenged me to overcome those things because it, in my opinion, it makes me look uneducated, which is super unfortunate. And there's actually a lot of people who go through stuff like that, and they're actually incredibly smart. But when you're not able to convey your thoughts properly, even though it sounds great in here, when you bring it out into words, it's an absolute mess. So for me, doing these shows, having to talk so many times of the day has been very beneficial to me in that sense, along with learning how to be a better researcher, to find valuable information, but also information that has been vetted as well, versus just pulling off anything online on some suspicious website and stating, okay, this is fact as well. But also, even in the show Shifting the Paradigm, Jimmy, it's not easy being a host. And you know this, you learned it from experience doing it for the last 10 years or so, where you have to find your groove. You have to find what questions you want to ask, and you have to find how you're going to gel with in some senses, a total stranger that
Mm,
you know a little bit of their work, but you don't really know them. So
mhm.
to be able to kind of feel it out, to be able to communicate with someone, especially if you're not necessarily an extrovert, that takes time as well. But being a host, hosting a radio show is a lot harder than people expect, or doing a live stream by yourself.
Mhm.
j- I- you've done that time and time again, and it takes a lot of work. And the first one or two times that you do it, you're like, how are people doing this? This is really, really hard,
Well,
because you can only rely on yourself to get
right.
that information.
Well, there's two ways to do a show. So the correct way, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about Fox Television or CNN or what we're doing here. It doesn't matter. There's two ways to approach it. One, where you're doing work and you're researching and you're investigating and pushing forward. That's one. The other one is the simple doofus way through this, that you're just going to not do any investigating. You're just going to complain and point fingers, right? And there are, when you look at historically at DJs, I'm talking about people on the radio in the past. You had some of these loud, boisterous things that think that that's effective and people are interested in that, and they just last for a little bit and they come and go. The ones with legs, Christina, are the hosts that learn because they are out there pushing and investigating, and they end up with this wealth of knowledge that as they move along in their career, they are able to ask questions based on a pile of knowledge from their research. And that is what people are interested in. They want to tap into that knowledge. And that's a tough thing. It's so much work that most people don't do it because they're frightened about the work ethic that is involved with that. When you look at somebody, you know who I'm really impressed with? There's many, but you look at a guy like Geraldo Rivera, right? That guy was one of the smartest, or he is one of the smartest people out there, because he was out there trying to learn and his career goes back to the 60s, when he was a kid. And that kind of work ethic, that kind of career where he pounded that for years and years and years and years. Most people don't have that kind of discipline. They just don't have that. You doing 3, 4, 5 shows a week after week after week after week, and everything that's involved, that scares people. That's a work ethic that most people just don't have. They don't have that kind of discipline. I certainly didn't have it for a long time.
But look at you now doing 4 shows a week, 2 hours each show.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy, it takes a lot of work, but when you're watching it on the sidelines, you're like, "Oh, this is easy." And then you jump into it and you're like, this is not, it's not for everyone. But it's something that when you enjoy it, you'll stick with it. If you have that consistency, that patience, and that determination, you'll continue. And if you're willing to learn about the topic as you go along, you got a steady foundation for you. But also having a good community around you as well, like having people that support you and that give you advice as well.
Yeah, that somebody just said I saw the opening of Al Capone's vault. You know what? Geraldo Rivera, one of the classic moments in all of TV history, but you know what? He did the dance really well. They did this big live special, Geraldo Rivera, right? He was going to go and they were going to open Al Capone's vault live on TV. Dun, dun, dun. And man, I forget, man, but I think half of the world, including myself, was watching that night. Vault was empty.
Oh my gosh. That's terrible.
You got to do the dance, man. You got to do these. You got a lot of time to fill, right? You got all those
Jeez. Now you're like, yeah, now what? How did they handle it? What skills did they bring with them?
You know what I remember most? about that. I wish I had the video. I really do. Was Geraldo's face. I mean, for like 2 or 3 seconds, he was like, you could tell. You could tell he's like, okay. He probably had a producer in his ear going, okay, stretch it out, man. Stretch it out. Stretch it out. And Geraldo, and they're doing that dance, man, for the next 45 minutes.
Oh, that's
It was
horrible.
awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah, hold on. Let's see here. I'm getting down. Yeah, they broke through some wall where he's supposedly buried. Nothing. That's exactly right. Hold on. This is great. Let's see. I remember there was dirt and beer bottles. Yeah, see, oh man, this is see, it was
What year was this?
Or
like ish. Just like give me like a range.
19, I'm gonna say 80. Let's go with 80, 81, 82. Like, okay, hold on. We can find this thing.
That is
Al Capone's Vault, American television program, right here. Somebody just said late 80s. I'm not so 86.
Wow.
Okay, I said 80, 81, 82. It's 86.
I think I need to watch this.
Oh, it's classic. It's classic. Jamie just said I was 12 years old. Yeah, there's an 86 in here. 86. It was, I'm telling you right now, 5.0 5-star ratings. There you go. I mean, it was classic. It was definitely classic. So many people say, this is the truth. And this is something that you can take with you for the rest of your career. There are so many people when it comes to Geraldo Rivera, because we kind of use him as a barometer. You can really gauge things. At one point, for probably 15, 20 years, he owned America. There's no question about it. Geraldo owned it. Very successful, and people would go, yeah, he did it because he did this, or he did this, and there was the moment he did this, and then there was this thing that he did in Staten Island, and then there was this thing he did in Manhattan, and then there was his thing, and then the throwing the chairs, and there's all of these things, but that was Geraldo. And there are people that will go to this Al Capone's vault, and they'll talk about, oh, it was empty. You know what? That moment on that show was television history. And it was his recovery on that. And that's what you do in live streaming. That's what you do at a moment, where you've got to, right? You got to bob and weave. You got to bob and weave. You got to bob and weave.
And nothing can prep you for it until it happens.
You have to bob and weave. I learned it so early on, even before I did Fade to Black, and it is to be able to dance and land on your feet and keep on going, and don't let things affect you or throw you off. Like the way that Geraldo opens up, breaks through a thing and the vault, and they open up, it's empty. There was so much hype behind Al Capone's vault, right? That, the riches that were going to be there, whatever, machine guns, dead bodies, what, Al Capone himself, I don't know. But there was so much hype behind it, and everybody was speculating, Christina, right? Hey, of course you are. Yeah. And so was Geraldo. And he was dreaming and thinking about, there was so much drama and hype and commercials and things built up behind it that even for Geraldo, I don't think that's what he expected. Nothing, right? Dirt and a couple of old Milwaukee beer cans. That kind of sucks. So how do you recover from that? And that's what you do. Are you going to, speaking of dancing,
You got to finesse it.
and bobbing and weaving, are you going to live stream in the RV?
Yeah. Yes.
It's going to be part of it, not just shoot. You're going to live.
Exactly. There will also be live streaming involved in the RV and in nature if reception is possible as well.
Let me ask you a question. If a network came to you, somebody listening to this show right now, and a network came to you and said, I heard you, talk about this with Jimmy Church, and we would like to be a part of this. Would you allow a network to come in and do that intrusion into your life and document this cross country adventure?
I like to do things my way.
Right. So you're saying no.
So I'm just not sure about it. There would have to be like really, really good reasons for it. But I want to create something that I have full control over and something also that I'm proud of as well. I don't want to create some BS content or just merely entertainment content that has no value. The goal to all of my shows is to educate and then secondly to entertain, but education comes first. So streaming independently on the internet, it seems like a better deal building your own community more so than working with television. Now, could that change? Possibly. I don't know at this point in time, but I do like what I'm doing now, being able to talk to my listeners, replying to their comments, talking to those who have questions, and having that more one-on-one interaction more so than just being on TV. I like to be independent.
I had said, and I'll be sort of specific here, but I had said to the head of one of the big networks. So it might have been ABC, might have been CBS, NBC, might have been Fox, might have been Disney, might have been Discovery. Doesn't matter, right? Just the head of a network, right? Viacom, pick a network. Doesn't matter. The head of one of those. And he goes, so what do you want to do? And I had just graduated, I said, well, man, I want to be a voice for the people. And I watched his reaction. Well, what do you mean? Well, man, I want to go out and do things with a purpose, and I would like to look into the alien agenda and UFOs and is there life out there? He literally rolled his eyes up in his head and says, that's what everybody says. Good luck with that in your career. It's like, really? And that's the way that the establishment looks at us, Christina.
Well, look at you now.
Well, that may be because I stuck to my guns and I didn't sell out, right? I could have taken the cush job. I could have been some reporter for ABC or some, newscaster and taken the easy way out and, 401k and really good health plan. All of that stuff. But that's no. I had said from the beginning that this is what I wanted to do. And I remember, and I love your comments about this. I had asked one of my teachers, and you should do the same thing before you graduate. Go to whoever's teaching your communications class, whatever it is, and whether it's journalism, it's writing, or it's newscast, whatever it is, whatever. Just go to them and go. So, what would you? I need some help here. What would you do if you had a UFO case where somebody has got a video and maybe somebody was abducted and you had witnesses? Would you take that to your news director? How do you approach that? That's what you do. And listen to their answer. Listen to their answer. Because that's where it's at. Because I did. And as soon as somebody responded back to me, and this was somebody from CNN, by the way, that's career suicide. I would never. I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing.
Exactly that.
I know what I'm doing. And you should do that. And you should get a feel for how the establishment is really dealing with these subjects. I really strongly suggest that you need to hear it and see it for yourself.
Luckily, the conversation is changing. It is easier to write about UFOs. There's a lot more articles regarding UFOs in the recent years since the 2017 article. So I don't necessarily consider it to be career suicide in 2023. Yes, it's still somewhat difficult from time to time, but overall, I think it's a lot more flexible to write about these things and be decently successful than back a few decades ago.
I mean, that's you have no idea. It's changed in the last 2 years.
It's no longer a fringe topic, which
Yeah.
is amazing. It's because we're having these conversations, Jimmy, and more people are being interested in what's happening here, all the mysteries.
I hope it doesn't swing back.
No, me
I hope
neither.
it doesn't go back to remember in 1947, 50, 51, 52, the UFO flap over Washington, D.C. Those were headlines, man. Right? Well, it was okay. You could do that. You could talk about this and you can report it. And then it took the downturn. And, I agree. It has swung back up and it's now back into the safe zone. Somebody has said that it's okay. I hope it doesn't go back in the other direction. I hope it stays where it is right now.
I don't think so. I think the cat's already out of the bag. The beans have been spilled on the floor. I don't know how that metaphor goes, but you know what I'm referring to.
Mhm.
And I think that at this point, it's only going to be a conversation that will continue to gain people's interest more so than ever before.
And so what's next then? What's next for you? Obviously graduating, but you just started a music channel, right? And I think that is that caught me by surprise. I had no idea. I knew that you were really good at video content and animation and creating and editing, but the music stuff came out of nowhere. But you've started your music channel. But what else is on the horizon?
Well, it will be officially purchasing an RV for sure. I mean, I have it in the works, but now it's just actually getting one. And still continuing the music channel, doing more on that because this is my original channel that started with music. My Cristina Gomez channel that I have now originally started with music a few years back. It
Mhm.
then went from there to look at UFO sightings and then into doing the live shows that we do now. But about like if you scroll to the very bottom of the channel, about like 3 years ago now, I started doing sleep music and ASMR music. And
What's
then I kind of
ASMR? What's
it's like it's just to relax.
ASMR?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you type it in, you'll find some really strange things, but the way that I'm using it is just a form of relaxation with musical tones. But I've always been interested in creating music, but now it's actually dedicating a separate channel to it because it seemed like doing it on my channel didn't really work. It's also helped with my insomnia. I've gotten comments by people stating it helps them as well. But my insomnia is kind of has made me make music. So I use that time where I can't sleep into being creative and creating something that I enjoy doing. One quick thing that I would like to mention, because I know that we're getting to the end of the show, regarding the UFO phenomenon and writing about it, writing articles about it, potentially even talking to professors about what their answer would be. I think now there is a convergence going on, and we're moving on from just talking about UFOs to UFOs being mixed with other mysteries. Look at Skinwalker Ranch, for example, and we've talked about this time and time again, but it's a really fantastic example of where you're dealing with a location in the Uinta Basin that has UFO sightings, paranormal encounters, cryptid sightings, potentially even portals and wormholes as well. And it's getting all of this attention through social media and through television to where Brandon Fugel had mentioned that all of the data that they're collecting, they're making it completely transparent that whatever they find, it's available to the public. They're not holding anything back while they are classified as a private entity, right? Not owned by the government. They care about the information that they are collecting, and they said, we want everyone to know about these mysteries. And my interview with Brandon is the #1 most watched show on my channel. And because the interest in the ranch is crazy high, everyone wants to understand these mysteries. But there are other locations like Skinwalker Ranch across the globe. However, Skinwalker Ranch is getting that scientific research, those scientific teams, and that exposure to the world compared to any other location. But it is a place that is a great example of the paranormal, the UFO phenomenon when its convergence with the paranormal.
I would, if I was a betting man, if I was Brandon Fugel, right, and I had $1 billion, well, I would bet that if you took the same amount of staff with the same amount of gear and the facilities, I'm talking about, you have a home, you've got a mess hall, you've got a tech center, you've got all these things, right? If you took that to any ranch in America, you're gonna find and see the same things. And I'm not saying that that basin and what is going is not a special place, but so was Joshua Tree, so was Sedona, Arizona. There are places in New York, there are places in Michigan, there are places in Minnesota,
Bradshaw Ranch in Sedona, Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts, just to name a few.
Exactly. Right. So it's not just Skinwalker's cool, right? Skinwalker's cool. But if you took Brandon's team and his resources and plug that in across the country, right? And we have universities that are very capable of this in every single state. Go set up camp and get to measuring, right? And let's get some answers to this, because there is obviously something going on, and it's not just isolated and right there at Skinwalker. No, it's across the United States. It's wherever you want to set up camp and get the cameras rolling.
But there is a long history there in that Skinwalker area and others.
There is, but you brought it up yourself. The Bridgewater Triangle, that show that we did on that area all the way up to the border of Canada and back, there are more missing persons on that stretch of road than I think anywhere on planet Earth. It's like, you remember how many cases we did? Remember
so many. We did. Well, we even talked about the Alaskan Triangle, which is the place that has the most disappearances in North America. And
how many people on that road in New Hampshire, right? Talk about Betty and Barney Hill, but on that road, remember that 5-year stretch? It was like anybody that ever went hiking disappeared forever. It didn't matter. You remember that? You remember the little kid that was sitting in his pickup truck while his mom was dealing with the pigs?
Oh, that story is so terrible.
It is
But
terrible.
I mean, looking at those locations and almost every state that we do, we always do a part 2. In particular with the Bridgewater Triangle, we did a part 2, and I feel like we could have done even a part 3 on that place because
Definitely.
it's so crazy. And these are hotspots across the globe, and it's not getting enough attention that it deserves, because these are, in a sense, hazardous locations. You have to be very cautious because you don't know what you're going to encounter, and you don't know if you're going to disappear in those places as well, because there's a lot of disappearances in those hotspot areas.
And without any of that, there would be no puck wedgie. Cristina, thank you so much. And thank you for everything that you do. This is a great conversation tonight, and it's a great way to kick off the new year. Behave and be well. I'll talk to you first thing in the morning.
All right. Thanks, Jimmy.
Cristina Gomez, the absolute very best. Thank you, Cristina. And with that, let's get out of here. I want everybody to go and have a great, safe, fun, and amazing weekend. It's right there in front of you. All right. Let me see. Where am I at? Does anybody know what am I doing? It's Thursday night. It's pizza night. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I hope you do the same. Fade to Black. It's produced by Hill J. Paul, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by the Fade to Black and Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We got a fantastic week lined up next week, but until then, have a great weekend. Be safe. Go Beckley Tepe.